Welcome back again. So now we are going to go for the talk. I think it's the one I waited the most for.
Me too.
You too? Yeah. So we are going to be with Jerry Woodfill for the talk. Houston, we have a problem. So he was the sole Apollo 11 and 13 Spacecraft Warning Systems Engineer, and he was responsible for the Apollo 13 alarm and words, Houston, we have a problem. So who else but the responsible of this story to tell it? So welcome Jerry into our studio and our show, Vostok in Vostok 1. The floor is yours, Jerry. You can go whenever you see you appear on the screen. Here we go.
Hi.
Direct from Houston.
Okay, good morning from Houston, but I guess good afternoon from where you folks are. And it's a delight to have this opportunity to speak to you all. I'm going to give you a program that deals with my career and Apollo missions, principally Apollo 13. And my story starts a while back. And I use PowerPoint. Good. I can see myself there. That's great. How do you like my studio here? I have behind me the three astronauts.
I think everyone here loves it.
We love the props.
It's as crazy.
Well, I see you guys, Paul and
Hi.
Good to see you again. Yeah, this is great. Okay. Well, anyway, this is my PowerPoint. I have the power to point to any particular screen in here, PowerPoint, you see. And so to start my show, I like to show you this, because this is why I work for NASA. I'm from the state of Indiana, and Indiana, they love basketball. So we were in the state tournament playing against the #1 team in Indiana, and I had the ball there. I'm number 30. And I had a miracle game, the best game I ever played in high school. And that game got me a full scholarship to Rice University, which is in Houston, Texas. That's where the manned spacecraft NASA is. And so I went to the school that is only about 30 miles from the Space Center. And when I finally graduated, I was not a good student. Now, I know a lot of students are listening to my presentation today, and maybe you're struggling in whatever class you have or test you have. Well, let me tell you, my story is one that you should never get discouraged, because in college, I had a very dismal academic career. In fact, I made the worst grade ever made in differential equations. But I didn't give up. Failure wasn't an option for me. And the President of the United States, John Kennedy, came to our stadium, Rice Stadium. I went down there very discouraged, not doing well. My basketball career was even worse, playing varsity basketball. I had the lowest shooting percentage of anybody who ever played ball for Rice University. And I was discouraged, but I heard John Kennedy, and he began to talk about going to the moon. And he said, we don't do this thing because it's easy, but he said because it's hard. Well, that encouraged me. If we could go to the moon, I could perhaps graduate as an electrical engineer. And I did. I gave up basketball. I focused on studies. I graduated, and I had one job offer I couldn't refuse, NASA. So that's the one I took. And so I came out to the Space Center in February 14th of 1965. So Monday is my 56th year at NASA. And this is what I looked like when I hired on at NASA right there. What a good looking young man I was in those days, you see. And so they assigned me the alarm system for this particular spacecraft, the command ship that would take astronauts to the moon, 3 astronauts to the moon. It's a little bit different than Orion and Artemis and all that kind of thing. But there are similarities you can certainly see in the two craft. This is a supersize of this craft, you see, and there are some advances. And of course, the technology of integrated circuits electronics is quite a bit advanced in this over this one, okay? So they said, well, Jerry, most of our engineers are working on what we call the Gemini program, 2 astronauts. And since you're here and you're an electrical engineer, we're going to make you the man in charge of the alarm system. Now, that was great. I think it's providential because in Rice Stadium, the president talked about this is a very grave and dangerous mission. And then before Congress, he said, I therefore declare that we send a man to the moon and return him safely to the Earth. Well, I was the one guy that was responsible, I think, in the most part, for returning him safely to the Earth, because the alarm system didn't warn you that you had an impending dangerous situation. You likely may not get back safely to the Earth. Now, it's one thing to walk on the moon, but it's much better to actually get back and be able to walk on Earth. Would you not agree with me? And so my responsibility, I was only 22 years old. Now, many of you students that are listening, some of you maybe are about that age. Can you imagine that? Now you will be assigned, like for the Artemis program, the alarm system that would protect the astronauts on their way back to the moon and so forth. And so in that capacity, to do that job, it's going to take a great knowledge of all the systems on board this particular vehicle. In order to tell somebody you have a problem, you have to know how the thing works. And so to do so, I went and visited what we called our subsystem managers. I would visit the managers for the power system and the environmental control system, the radar system, and I'd ask them, what is the best way to tell astronauts and flight controllers what is going on? And so they tell me, and that's what I would put into the alarm system. It was an electronic device that if something was out of tolerance, it would actually go through electronics, which I was responsible for, and then it would turn on a light on their control panel, and they would see whether it was a low pressure on board or oxygen flow was limited. They see a little light come on, say O2 flow or something like that. If the electrical power was down, it'd say main bus B undervolt or things like that. And so that was my responsibility, to visit all these systems managers and then integrate that into a system that would tell the astronauts anytime anything was amiss. And so, okay, I've got 20 minutes, so I'm going to focus more on Apollo 13 than anything else, because that's why I get so many invitations. I've gotten usually about 60 invitations a year to do this talk I'm giving you guys. I've given the talk about 1,000 times, but every time it's always different. That's what's so unusual. Things will come to mind that I had never thought to share before, and they will come to mind today with you. And so amazing. Here I was, this young engineer, and they sent me out to the manufacturer of this particular vehicle. It is made by a company called North American Rockwell in Los Angeles, California. And so I went out there, and we were going to do a final review of all the tests on this particular vehicle. And of course, they wanted to know that the alarm system worked correctly. And so I visited with the astronauts. There were Gus Grissom, Ed White, and again, a young rookie astronaut named Roger Chaffee. And Roger and I went over all the things about the alarm system. So then it came for the final review at the manufacturer, and they asked me about the alarm system. I said, well, it's going to work right. Well, when Roger and Ed and Gus got out to test this thing, it was called Spacecraft 12 at Cape Kennedy, something went wrong. There was a short circuit beneath Gus's couch. And those 3 men that I had worked with and appreciated and respected, they lost their lives. Now, the alarm system came on, but the design of the vehicle is so in error that they had all kinds of flammable materials. It was a terrible design. And because of that terrible design and the shame that we all felt, it had to be redesigned. So I was assigned to be the person that would redesign the alarm system. And because of that, we put all kinds of fixes in. Okay, so we went to the moon in Apollo 11. And they asked me, said, Jerry, would you write a procedure for Neil Armstrong so that when he turns on the Eagle, he knows what lights should be on? Because until a system is powered up, you're going to have lights on. And it's just like your automobile. Until you turn it on and everything's operational, you're going to have some lights on. Okay, so I wrote this down. Now, here's where they put me for Apollo 11. I was not a flight controller. People make that mistake. They say 2 things, that I was a flight controller and that I'm retired. They think the guy is that old, he must be retired. No, I haven't retired yet, but I was with a group that I like to think was more significant than a flight controller, because we were the guys that actually designed all the systems that made this thing work and made this thing work. And we tested all those systems to assure that they would work. And because of the Apollo fire, the head of the entire Apollo program said, we need another group besides flight control and astronauts. We need a group of engineers that actually designed, tested, and know the insignificant things that if we get to a real grave problems, we need to have people that we can actually go to design the thing. Maybe there are problems that flight controllers wouldn't be aware of. So we put this group of people into a room, and it was called the Mission Evaluation Room. And it was not in flight control, but it was nearby. And here's what our room looked like. And let me see if I can get in my PowerPoint show. Here it is. Here's our room right here. Okay. And you see that guy with all the hair in the corner? That's me in the mission evaluation room. Okay. Now, we had a primitive setup there, but it was primitive. We weren't flight controllers. We were engineers. And so, here's the flight control. You see their station? Well, this is what we had to use. See that television? We multitask it. We use it as a coat hanger too. But you see those guys, they had their consoles and their easy chairs, and we had a situation here. There we are, and it was very primitive. I've been asked to do a talk on Apollo 13. It's, Jerry, would you put together all the MacGyvers that saved Apollo 13, all the little things that you had to make do with? Well, we knew about MacGyvering because in the mission evaluation room, okay, the flight controllers, when they wanted to send a message to anybody, they had these pneumatic tubes. They put the things in the tube and send it down. Well, we didn't have quite such a thing. And so if I wanted to send a message to one of my friends, I would have to use this. If there's a master alarm, there it was. So I would just say, if it's an O2 or bang bus B undervolt, or me, so I could just take my airplane and I'd send it to the power guys down the way in the mission evaluation room. Anyway, that's MacGyvering for sure. So here we were in Apollo 13. Okay, so now I've been going, I started out at 15 after, I've gone 10 minutes. Okay, so I want to talk a bit of some of the things that we faced in Apollo 13. One of the things I share this program with a lot of church groups too, because I believe it was providence and prayer besides all the ingenuity and things we had that actually brought them back to Earth. Well, one of the things was, you see the Earth and the moon, about 240,000 miles right there. You see that?
Yes,
well, the explosion happened where my head is, right there, about 208,000 miles from Earth. You know, had it happened, you know, much closer to the Earth where my nose is now, we couldn't have saved him. If it would have happened after the lunar lander departed for the moon's surface, they would have been dead men. And it happened at just the right time where Jerry's glasses are and his nose is right here. 208,000 miles from Earth at 55 hours and 55 minutes into the mission. And this is the thing that why I get invitations. This is why probably Gene Kranz, you know, is always asked to come and share in the movie, because he was on station. He was in charge of the flight control group that was trying to rescue the guys. Well, I wasn't in charge of the mission evaluation room, but I was there and I had my headset on. And so I was looking at that television screen, that black and white, you know, 16-inch screen. And all of a sudden it's flickering. And I said, oh, and I hear the astronauts say, Houston, we've had a problem. And the reason they said that is because my alarm system turned on those bright red master alarm lights, and in their headsets they heard this this loud siren-like tone going on. And it was one of my alarms that I talked to the power guys about. It was called the main bus B undervolt. When that explosion ripped out that O2 tank, it also pulled down the electrical system, and so the voltage got under the threshold that I had set under, I think it was 26.5 or something, and it turned on the master alarm. And that's when they said, Houston, we've had a problem, because Jerry's alarm system was responsible for that. So, you know, I embellished this a little bit, you know, after talking about it for 51 years, but I think that's pretty much true. So here we were, okay. And what are we going to do? All kinds of problems. If you really want an in-depth treatment of this, Google on the internet, Jerry Woodfill, Universe Today. Jerry Woodfill, and you'll see all the things that saved Apollo 13. I put together 13 things in the 40th anniversary. And then they said, Jerry, do you know anything else? Well, for the 45th anniversary, I thought 13 more things that save Apollo. I'll share some of them. The one in the movie. Now, y'all got to see a movie. Whoever is listening to me has to see the movie Apollo 13, because it is well done. See my guys behind me right here? Let me see. We've got Tom Hanks. You see him over in the middle there, and the Hollywood actors. And the movie is well done, and so if you go watch it, go to that Universe Today site and you'll see some of the specific things. Okay, so one of the things, oh, by the way, this mission evaluation room, they call it the MIR. I like to think it's the mission engineering room, because we were the engineers that actually designed the thing. We were led by a guy named Don Arabian. This guy was totally unorthodox. If you read the book, Apollo 13, Jim Lovell's book, he talks about Don in chapter 10. And Don was a real outspoken guy. And he would talk about what we did, you know, as engineers. He said, we don't need any of those fancy consoles. We got the brain power. And he would tell everybody exactly what we did. And so here's one of the things we did to rescue Apollo 13. When this ship exploded, I'll use this particular thing. When this ship exploded, it took out the O2 tank 2. Now, here's another thing. 2 was on the outside perimeter. If the short circuit that caused O2 tank to explode had been in O2 tank 1, the men would have died, because it would have been in the interior, and it would have involved the hydrogen tanks above the O2 tanks, cryogenic, you know, stuff, and then it died. And so, because we had lost all that power, that oxygen, we couldn't produce the power. We couldn't produce oxygen. This ship couldn't sustain life. And but no oxygen power, we had to use, of course, if you watch the movie, this ship. Okay, so the problem was that when you use this ship designed for 2 guys for 2 days, and you need this ship designed for 3 guys for 2 weeks, you're going to have to improvise. So they called the mission evaluation room, and they said, we got a problem. We don't have enough filters. We don't have enough of these square filters from this ship to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere of the cabin of this ship. So the men are not going to be able to keep their air free of carbon dioxide, and they're going to get drowsy. And so the mission evaluation room, Don says, Jerry, I want to talk to you. Come into my room. So I go into the room, and he says, Jerry, your alarm system keeps ringing the CO2 pressure alarm. I said, yeah, it should be. There's not enough filters, and the level of CO2 is going up above 7.6 millimeters of mercury, which I set there as the alarm level. And he says, well, Jerry, what do we do about it? He says, Don, I don't fix problems. No, I tell you got a problem. Somebody else got to fix it. And so the guys in the environmental control group in the mission evaluation room, they came up with the fix. And the fix is, if you see it in the movie, but there were these round filters in the lunar lander here, and they wouldn't work in the, there weren't enough of them, and the square filters wouldn't work in the round barrel in the lunar lander. Now, how you make a square peg fit into the round? Now, I know Cranfield University teaches you how to do that. You guys work miracles, okay? But with my limited intelligence, I couldn't figure it out. So they call the guy in charge of the crew systems, environmental control system, and here's what he thinks. He's actually driving over to the Space Center, and this idea comes into his mind. He said, I know how I can fix it. I can take plastic bags I know are on board. I can take those square filters and put them at the mouth of the bag. And then I know I have a fan on board that circulates the atmosphere in the cabin around. And if I put that filter in the bag like this, and only problem is going to leak. And he says, if there's duct tape on board, I can save their lives. Well, guess what? There was some duct tape on board. And that's a story in itself, why there was duct tape on board. And so the mission evaluation room, that's one of the huge contributions we made to rescuing Apollo 13. Now, there are many others. And if you go to the website, University Today, you'll see at least, well, there were 26. I did the series in the 40th anniversary, did it for 45th anniversary. And then on the 50th anniversary, they said, well, Jerry, we're going to ask some other people. So I did some of it, but they have other people that worked Apollo 13 to contribute things. Okay, so there we go. So now, having talked to you guys, and I see it is now 11:37, and I'm supposed to ask for questions at 11:40. Okay, so you're giving me time to do one more thing that saved Apollo 13. And I like this one because remember my little story there between the Earth and the moon. Now, here's my moon. They're pretty much, okay, here's Jerry, and he's getting near to the Earth. See, my nose is supposed to be going near the Earth, okay? So
That's perfect, Jerry.
I love these virtual shows. I can do things on these virtual shows you never could do if you did a live show, So, I don't have to drive across Houston or I can just walk up to my studio here in my bedroom, do a show for you guys. So, okay, we're coming, and we're about the retro officer. This guy, he said, there's some kind of an issue. Apollo 13, when it's returning to Earth, here we go on. It seems like the angle that it's going to it's not going to be in the reentry corridor. And in fact, it looks like it's shallowing, which means it's going to go above Earth, miss Earth altogether, and they won't survive. So in the movie, you watch the movie, they have what they call a burn, where they fire the engine in the lunar lander to bring the whole vehicle configuration back in the entry corridor. So they fire the engine. But here's the problem. The retro officer doesn't know if whatever is causing this this what they call shallowing. There's some kind of a thrusting effector causing shallowing. And they turned off everything. They won't even expel their urine into space for fear that the expelling of the urine will cause the trajectory to miss Earth. So there's nothing being put out into Earth, but it's still shallowing. And he doesn't know what to do because there's going to be a time when he can't fire thrusters any longer. I always tell this story because it really is an endearing story. I got a letter from a school teacher in Pennsylvania. She said, Jerry, that particular day that you were facing that problem, there was also a hurricane in the landing site. Believe that. There's a hurricane in the landing site. Now, what's he going to do? And the weatherman said, you better move the landing site. It looks like you're going to land in a hurricane. So the guys, and the other thing is they don't know if the guidance system, because it's been cold for so long, is going to be accurate. So he doesn't know if they're going to accurately land. He doesn't know if they're going to land in a hurricane. He doesn't know about this drift that's happening. And finally, the teacher writes me this letter, and I get it at the Space Center. All it says, Jerry Woodfill, Houston, Texas, NASA. But it got to my desk. And she said, that day I was teaching those kids. And one of the little kids, little redheaded Wanda, said, teacher, our astronauts, I heard on TV, they're not going to live because there's a hurricane. And this is a wonderful teacher. She says, kids, all we can do is we can pray. And those 14 little kids prayed that somehow, some way, our astronauts would get back to Earth. Well, this is what happened. Well, after they prayed, the retro officer says, I'm just going to believe that those weathermen are wrong. And I'm going to believe that drift is going to stop. I'm going to believe that the guidance system is going to be accurate. And guess what? We didn't know. He didn't know. But what was causing the angle to shallow was this lunar lander was actually putting off a little bit of vapor because the electrical system was cooling and it was putting off vapor. And when they discarded the lunar lander to re-enter with the capsule of the 3 men in the capsule, this was gone. And so the shallowing was gone. And he brought down, the weatherman said the hurricane moved away. And we had the most accurate landing of the entire Apollo program. I like to think, all of us at NASA take credit, but I think maybe those kids had a role in it too. So that's my story about Apollo 13. If you guys got any questions, let me have them and we'll see what comes to mind, okay? And I'll use my PowerPoint.
Actually, you didn't.
Okay.
So you were not able to hear it, but you had an ovation in our studio
in the
here.
studio, everyone was clapping your hands. So
yeah.
Congratulations for the speech. And it's amazing story again. Yeah.
And actually, we do. I think it's worth spending just, if possible, like 5 more minutes, if possible, because we do have more answers. If you're so, if you're willing to answer us, so let's go. First of all, you already started this amazing talk, saying that for students that don't worry, like it's fine if you are better or worse students, you still can manage and achieve great things. So do you have a specific advice for students that may be watching us at the moment?
Advice for what particular thing?
Yes, for students yes, sorry?
For students that are willing to work in the space industry in the next years.
One of the problems I'm having is that I'm getting the audio is a little bit garbled at my end. Was there a way to type out the question or anything? You want to know advice for the next year with regard to what?
So we would like, I think someone in our team might be able to write it down on the chat, but just in any case, I will repeat it. So what type of advice would you give to a student that is looking to start their career in space?
Okay, here's the thing. Look at me, my career, 56 years doing the same thing. Okay, you're preparing yourself. If you're taking any kind of STEM studies, and you're being prepared. But don't always think that you don't have within yourself the ability to make a contribution. Every one of you, I have them, every one of us are different. We've got gifts that no other person has. So as you study in your STEM work, don't get discouraged. Don't think that you have to be an astronaut or a flight controller or even engineer, but know that what you're studying, there'll be a door that'll open up for you. And in order to share that with you, I want to conclude with this. I do this talk so many times, and I have made probably 30,000 honorary flight controllers. I wear this wristband. It says failure is not an option. I have the right stuff. And what I do is when I go out live, I have every one of the people that hear my talk share this with them. So I want to give you guys that are listening to me, I want to give you the oath of the Honorary Apollo Flight Controller, okay? And put your hands over your hearts now, wherever you are. Okay, here we go. And we're gonna become Honorary Apollo 13 Flight Controllers. Now, if you say this with me, you can actually print this thing out. You can print this thing out and put your name in here and carry it around, and you are an honorary Apollo flight controller. And gifted by Jerry Woodfill, the man responsible for failure is not an option. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Yes. Hands over the heart. I will do my best.
I will do my best.
To achieve success in my goals.
To achieve success in my goals.
Neither fear, failure, nor frustration shall overcome me.
Failure nor frustration shall overcome me.
I am unstoppable.
I am unstoppable.
Unmovable and unshakable.
Unmovable and unshakable.
Failure is not an option.
Failure is not an option.
I have the right stuff.
I have the right stuff.
Okay, now that's my thing for you guys. What to do in the next year. Remember, you got the right stuff, and failure is not an option.
Failure is not an
option. I wish
option.
you Godspeed in your careers, and thank you for letting me share my story with you.
Thank you. It was our pleasure and the pleasure of everyone watching the movie. So
from the studio,
thank you.
They are actually clapping for you.
Everyone
so
is clapping for you. Thank you very much, Jerry, to join us from Houston, Texas.
And we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Unbelievable story, and we are really happy to have you here in Cornfield online. And yeah,
see you soon.
See you soon, I guess.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Godspeed.
You guys have honored me to let me share. Godspeed to you. I'll be going back to my day job now. Okay, bye-bye.
That's perfect.
Have
Bye.
a good day.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
Jerry. Okay, thank you again.
Okay, I think with this we can. This is like the perfect ending for the day. I feel like the audience will agree with me. So, if you want to start with a farewell.
Okay, so after this amazing talk about from Jerry Woodfill, proving that failure is not an option, and that's you got what you need to achieve your dream and to make something. So yeah, I think on behalf of our team, we can thank you, all of you attending the events, and it was really a long and exciting thing to prepare, and really we enjoy to make it. We really hope you liked it.
Like as we said during our event, Concepts has